This is another one of those conventional thinking. Is it right? Is it wrong? So we've all heard a lot of great things about patience. We've heard, patience is a virtue, all the beautiful things about being patient. But I've seen a lot of great things when you're impulsive, right? So the topic today is impulsive or patience. What do you usually lean towards, Jason?
As with most things, it depends on the facet of life you're talking about. Patience, I think, is definitely rewarded with respect to things like career. Impulsive is something that is probably a worthy attribute when you're traveling, taking advantage of new experiences that come up. But there's something to be said for being impulsive to a certain extent with respect to your career, taking a path less chosen, right? But it comes down to the individual personality of the person, because somebody who's less of an impulsive character will probably react very poorly when making impulsive decisions, or put in a position where they are selecting something that they haven't thought about a lot.
So patience, so obviously, like, before we get to the benefits of impatience, so what are the benefits of being patient? Like, I know it could be very common sense, but what are the main benefits of being patient?
I think an example, like personally in my career, I remember there was a spot that opened up on the team, and I told my boss, I'm like, I want to go for it, and he said, I don't think you're ready yet. And part of you the impulsive part of you wants to just say, like, no, I can do this. Mm-hmm. And you want to use some words probably that you shouldn't be using. And he's like, trust me. He goes, it'll happen, right? And I think, and look, like hindsight, looking back at that, and the following year, I got that position, and things were great. Had a great year, but it was looking back at that. If I let my impulse get the best of me, to kind of give him the middle finger or whatever, or leave, right?
Right.
And say, I'm going to a different bank or something. I'm going to a competitor. I think that would have been a mistake, right? Because I think it's funny because I'm still very close to this person. We're from the same vintage, same age, and it was kind of that patience also shows, your boss or whoever, like in kind of leadership, your maturity. Right? To like, hey, I'm not gonna take this personally. Right. I'm gonna take the criticism, work on what I need to work on to get ready. So the patience, I think, that can be beneficial. Right?
Like, I know that we can make a lot of cases where patient wins, and I think there's huge benefits of being patient. Mm-hmm. Many times, but I think being patient sometimes kills you, right? Or it's boring, but also like, some of the things. So my backstory is like, growing up, I was taught patience is king. Mm-hmm. Impatience or being impulsive it's evil, it's bad, it's not good, So whenever I wanted to do something impulsive, I'm like stopping myself, no, I shouldn't do it, I shouldn't do it. But often, I regretted some of the things I didn't do because I was being too patient, or right. I thought
patience or caution. There's a difference.
Well, the thing is like, impulsive means that like you're just making a decision, like having a bit of a feeling on it, but like sometimes you might be strong about something or feel strong about something, and then you let it marinate for like a week or a month or 2 or 3, mm-hmm. and you don't lose interest. So I think there's a benefit. If there's something you really want it bad, you go after it, right? Because I think when you have that hunger doesn't last often all the time, right? Or it might be very, very high at a point, and it still be very interested, but might not be as high. So I think you want to ride that wave, right? So when you have that desire to do something, you go and do it, right? Obviously, like the way I balance, being impulsive without being totally reckless is knowing there's I have a way to get out of it, right? If I'm going to take a risk, if I'm going to, be impulsive, I look at it as, okay, if this goes wrong, what am I going to do? How do I get out of this situation? Right. So I have I form a mini backup plan, not like a full-fledged backup plan. I don't spend more time on my backup plan than my plan A. But when I do something impulsive, not all the time, I might have these urges once a month or something like that. But when I have that, I just do it, right? I try to do it. Usually when I'm speaking to others, they'll talk me out of it, right? And sometimes I get upset because often it's the right thing. And I know, like, it's not like it's, you know, I know that when I do something impulsive, I might not have looked at all of the angles, but sometimes looking at all angles makes you say no. And when you say no, sometimes you never give your chance to kind of explore that, right? So,
Right.
𝐇𝐎.
Well, patience is one of my worst qualities. I have to admit, I'm a very impatient person, but I'm aware of that, and so it's something that I have to work at. I think for me, acting on my impulse has led to my success, usually in the jobs that I have, because I'm not in a position where if I make a wrong decision, it's going to be like detrimental to the organization. But you can give me, I'm in a place where I have to give customers guidance and recommendations based on sometimes limited information, and I have to act on impulse because they're wanting an answer. And I think the fact that I'm able to, you don't need to give me the entire story, you can give me the important pieces, and I'm going to take that based on the knowledge that I have with the current job, like even with the software company that I work for, telling me what you want, using the knowledge that I have, and I'm going to give you an answer based on impulse and instinct. And customers like that. Like when I get taken off a project and somebody gets put on, one of the complaints is they take too long to give me an answer. And because I act on impulse and instinct, customers like that. But sometimes I will caution and say, I think you should go, down this path, but here are the things that I'm not 100% sure about, and let them make the decision. But I could take time to go and research and get back to them. But because I act on impulse and instinct, that's why my customers request that I work on their projects. So I think for me, impulsive works.
Jason, are you impulsive or are you patient?
Can be impulsive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You like that about you?
with my own business, I'm more patient. Yeah. But I find, with personal relationships, it always pays dividends to be patient, right? Especially when it comes to child rearing.
No, they need to do it right now.
Yeah, exactly. And I have to fight against that.
So it was interesting. You mentioned a few things, 𝐇𝐎, about like you don't like the fact that you're impatient, but you also mentioned how some of your greatest wins were because you just went for it, right? Yeah. That was kind of the way I used to think, where I'm like, no, this is bad to be like impulsive. I should think. I should let this, soak in for a week or two or three. I think there's a lot of value. And I think it's one of the things I like to teach people is to be impulsive, because we're so pushed to be towards patient, right? Like everyone's patient. Like there's no one in the world that's like never patient, right? But I think society pushes you way too much in patience and not enough in being impulsive, that I think, you could live I'm not saying a better life, but I think you can live an exciting life being impulsive. I think a lot of my biggest wins were when I was impulsive. I made a lot of house purchasing decisions, car purchasing decisions on impulse, and I don't regret any of them, right? But I also knew that, hey, I'm taking risk, and I'm willing to kind of live by the sword, die by the sword. But I think there's a lot of value in teaching others to be impulsive if that's their characteristic. I don't think we should. I think you should harness that characteristics if they have it, rather than saying no, it's bad.
Right.
Be something different, or do something different.
Right.
Often, a lot of the best things happen because of being impulsive, right? Yeah. And I used to apologize for being impulsive, but I saw a lot of the great ones, a lot of the best people I've worked for were impulsive. They didn't broadcast it, but when I observed their behavior, everything they did. Recently, I had a project where I didn't want to give it to someone because they're so patient that, we were choosing a vendor, and, the project was handed to them, and it took them about 3 months to go back and forth with the contract. Right?
Paralysis by analysis.
And I got in trouble for that, right? That why did we spend 3 months on negotiating and going back and forth? We could have started the project and it would probably been done by now, right? So the next thing that happened, when that is unfolding and I'm realizing, hold on, it's been like so long since we started that. How come we haven't even started the work, let alone signed the contract? I just, someone wanted something, my boss wanted something. On the Tuesday afternoon, I kind of asked a few questions, did a few Google searches, had a demo with the person. That the next morning, 2 days later, I negotiated during a call and just signed a $30,000 check on the fly, right? And it's already paid dividends. Like within a week after signing it, we got access to the system, and we are already starting reaping the rewards. Had I given it to someone that was patient, they probably wouldn't have, signed the contract by now, because they would have worried about all the angles that they would have just been stuck, right? And not took the plunge.
Like the house we live in now, we bought on impulse. My impulse.
Same here.
It was my impulse. We would drive by the area, we'd see the sign, we were looking to move, and I got an appointment. We were the second showing, and I remember, I'm like, if it has these things, like, I wanted to be on a pie-shaped lot, I had a checklist, and I'm like, if it hit most of those, we're gonna get this house, and it checked all the boxes, and I'm like, I remember arguing with my husband, I want this one. Oh, we should go home and think about it. What is there to think about? I want this one. And we're going back and forth. And he's like, I didn't bring my checkbook. And I'm like, I brought my checkbook. And I'm like, so we're doing this right now. We're doing it. And we bought it on impulse. And it was one of the best decisions that we made. And had I listened to him, because he's more cautious, we would have gone home, probably talked ourselves out of why we shouldn't in that moment. Yeah. So for me, impulse has worked.
Awesome.
But I feel like that's a product of the environment too, though, right? Like, going back like 18 months ago, when there were multiple bids on houses, you had to be impulsive to get the house.
Right.
We're in a different market now, where it's softened a lot, where you can be like, maybe me giving them 3 days after the showing will actually go in my favor.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, this was 10 years ago, so it was it was 10 years ago.
The market was still hot around that time.
Yeah. It was still hot. The market's been hot for the last 20 years until now, right? Like, you literally, I remember like the house that I bought like 15 years ago in Oakville, the first one I bought, the cops had to be hired to organize a sales center. Right? So, like, when you're talking to the salesperson, you're like, can you throw in $21,000 in upgrades? Like, no, because the guy behind you will buy the house.
That's right.
So then you have to be impulsive, right? So I think it depends.
Sure.
Right. I think there's times when, you kind of mentioned the client thing. If you're impulsive and you give the client the wrong information, then they lose trust in you, right? Like there's a kid who started like on the team beside me, and I kind of hear him talking sometimes. Like, oh yeah, we can totally do this. We do this. I'm like, you can't do that, right? And you go back to the client, you're like, I can't do that.
Sure.
You lose credibility.
Sure.
Right. So to be like, hey, you know what? Give me an hour, let me get back to you. Let me see if we can structure that deal up for you. Because if you say you can and then you can't, right, then you lose credibility, right? And there's nothing like, hey, I totally understand. You gotta get back to your clients quickly, but if you're like, give me a day, let me see what we can do here. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. The one piece of advice I got when I started dealing with clients was, you're not gonna know everything, and that's okay. And the clients respect the fact that you're not trying to BS them, because they'll read through it. And they're going to respect the fact that you're going to be like, you know what? I don't know the answer to that, but let me get back to you tomorrow on it.
Right.
Right. So I think it depends.
Yeah,
right?
It depends. And I think what Keisha said was a good example as well, which was she had a bit of science behind it. She had a few checks. It wasn't like she just went in, I'm going to buy the house. Like there was a bit of science behind it. She was weighing the risk. I wouldn't recommend like lying, and even when you're kind of giving insight to customers, I'm sure it's with some knowledge.
It's with knowledge. It's not based like it's usually I'll make those decisions based on, again, my experience and what I know from the customer, how they want things, and what I know about our product, right? And like right now I'm on a project where it's a new product that we're offering, and there's not a lot of documentation. I'm just learning that part of the application. I'm not going to take those same act on those impulses as I would have on another part of the application that I'm way more comfortable with. So you have to, it has to be a balance, and you have to use your judgment in
Yeah, and
those
that's what I'm saying is
circumstances.
that I think it just depends, right? Like when you know, like if it's a product that you know like the back of your hand, then you may not need all the facts. You be like, listen, I know the solution. Like this is it because I've seen this before.
Yep.
Like this is what we do, right? And I think the house thing, right? Like I think if you're in a bull market and there's 50 bids, you got to go in, no conditions.
Yep.
You know, no financing conditions, no home inspection, and like 200K over asking, right? You remember that was crazy. It was like, houses go 50% over asking, listed for $1 million.
50%.
Listed for $1 million, and they'd go for 1.5.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right,
Wow.
and there'd be no conditions, right? And it was like if you didn't do that,
You
wouldn't get a house.
Yeah.
Right, so you had to be impulsive. Right now, it's a bit different, where it's like you have a bit of room to be patient, right? So I think it depends.